In my final year of college, I went to one of those infamous house parties that seemed to happen every weekend. You know the kind, crowded rooms filled with people you vaguely recognize, music so loud it drowns out your thoughts, and a sea of red Solo cups. It wasn't really my scene, but my roommate, Ethan, convinced me to tag along. "You might meet someone," he said with a smirk, nudging me toward the door. As it turned out, Ethan wasn't wrong. I was standing by the makeshift bar in the corner of the living room, awkwardly, holding a beer I didn't particularly like when I noticed her. She was laughing, the kind of laugh that makes you want to join in even if you don't know the joke. She had dark, curly hair that framed her face and eyes so lively they seemed to dance with the flickering light from a neon sign on the wall. I must have been staring because she caught my gaze and smiled. Not a polite, reserved smile, but one of those full-face smiles that makes you feel like the most interesting person in the room. Before I could think of a reason to approach her, she was already walking toward me. "Hi," she said, holding out her hand like we were meeting at a job interview. "I'm Clara." I shook her hand, laughing at the absurd formality of it all. "Adam," I replied, feeling instantly at ease. From there, we started talking, and drinking, and talking some more. Every now and then, she'd lean in closer, her voice just loud enough to rise above the music, and I'd catch a whiff of her perfume, something floral and intoxicating. I felt like we were the only two people at the party, even as the chaos swirled around us. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes. Time seemed irrelevant. At some point, we started kissing, her lips soft and warm against mine, her hands tangling in my hair. It felt electric, like we were in the middle of a scene from a movie. Then she pulled back slightly, her eyes locked on mine. "Come with me," she said, her voice low and playful. She grabbed my hand and led me through the crowded living room, weaving between clusters of people until we reached the hallway. My heart was racing, a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. I followed her to a small bathroom at the end of the hall. She opened the door and gestured for me to go in first. I stepped inside, and before I could even take in the cramped space, she closed the door behind her and locked it. The sound of the lock clicking sent my heart into overdrive. Clara turned to me with a sly grin, her back against the door. "Just a second," she said, unzipping her jeans. I blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, sure," I stammered, stepping aside to give her space. She sat down on the toilet, completely unbothered by my presence. At first, I thought she just needed to pee. But then she grunted softly. A moment later, there was a distinct plop. The air seemed to shift. My brain struggled to process what was happening. Surely I thought this couldn't be real. I stared at the floor, suddenly hyper-aware of every sound, every second dragging on like an eternity. There was a faint smell beginning to creep into the air, and I felt my stomach churn. "Sorry," Clara said casually, as if we were still chatting in the living room. She reached for the toilet paper. "Nature calls, you know." That was it. That was my breaking point. I just remembered I left something in the kitchen. I mumbled, fumbling for the lock. My hands were shaking as I twisted it open. "Wait, what?" she said, but I was already halfway out the door. I didn't stop moving until I was outside, gulping in the cool night air like it was the antidote to whatever had just happened. My heart was pounding, not from excitement this time, but from sheer disbelief. Ethan found me an hour later, sitting on the curb at the end of the driveway. "What happened to you?" he asked, handing me a fresh beer. "Nothing," I said quickly, taking a long sip. And that was the truth. Nothing happened. At least, nothing I ever wanted to think about again. I never saw Clara after that night. For all I know, she probably laughed it off and told her friends some ridiculous story about the guy who couldn't handle a little honesty. But for me, it was a moment burned into my memory. A reminder that not every romantic encounter is destined for a fairy tale ending. And sometimes, it's okay to run.